Today I'm interviewing Nigel Streeter. Nice to meet you, Nigel.
Nice to meet you too.
I've got a few questions to ask.
Yeah, go on.
What made you want to become an actor?
I wanted to be an actor from when I was very young, and I was a police officer for 30 years. So I retired relatively young when I was 50. That might sound a bit old to you, 50 at the moment, but it is relatively young to retire. And it then gave me the opportunity to do all the things that I'd wanted to do since I was young. And I had a choice of either going to what they then called drama college or becoming a police officer. So I became a police officer, which at the time I thought was sort of like a bit of a boring decision to make, but in actual fact it turned out to be the right decision to make. So when I was 50, I got the chance to do all this. And the actual reason is because it's almost like some compulsion to actually tell stories and be involved in stories. So it's just part of that, if you like. It's part of being someone who's involved in telling stories.
What was the first role that you ever did?
The first one ever?
Yeah.
I was about 13, and I was either the back end of a cow in a pantomime, or I think I was the goose in Mother Goose, and that was in a theatre company in Penarth that my mother used to be a member of, and I think they did Mother Goose, and I'm fairly certain I was the goose.
Have you ever been injured on stage or on set?
No, but I did see the questions beforehand, and there's a tradition in the theatre where they say break a leg, which means is, you know, get on there and do your best. And I've never actually broken a leg or anything else on stage or on set.
If you were a biscuit, which would you be?
I would be a rich tea biscuit. And the reason for that is because rich tea biscuits on their own are a little bit on the boring side. I don't know who makes them, but I apologise to whoever makes them. I'm not saying they're boring. But if you put a bit of butter in the middle of them and you dunk them in your tea, they are absolutely wonderful. So I'd be a rich tea biscuit.
What is something embarrassing or unexpected what happened to you on set?
Embarrassing or unexpected?
Yeah.
Sorry to be boring, but no. There's never been any great disasters. I can't even think of all that. Things go wrong all the time as an actor, or if you're a filmmaker, things go wrong all the time. There's always sort of issues, you know, things you've got to try and sort out. But on the acting side, I can say that nothing embarrassing, what was the other bit?
Unexpected.
Unexpected has ever happened to me on set. There's your answer.
Do you prefer acting for film or for the theatre?
These days, very much for film. I did about 9 plays when I first started, or when I finished, or just before I finished as a police officer. I did about 9 plays with a local drama company, and it got to the point where, for various reasons in relation to the sort of plays that they were choosing, and also because of the fact I wanted to move on to film acting because I wanted to make films as well, I very much prefer film acting. And the reason for that is because when you're in the theatre, everything has to be quite big. Everything has to, they say, talk to the back of the audience. But when you're on film, it gives you much more of an opportunity to do things which are a little bit more small, a little bit more delicate, because obviously the camera can come right up to you and it can actually catch those things in your eyes or the things you say or the way you talk. So I very much prefer film acting these days.
Right. What's the worst part of being an actor?
The worst part? I suppose it's because when I was a police officer, everything was sorted out for me. Everything was, I knew exactly when everything was going to happen. And I knew when I was going to work, when I wasn't going to work. But as a police officer, it's so completely different from being an actor. Because an actor, you never know when you're going to get your next piece of work. So you can go for something, and you can go for a reading or an audition for something, and you can do really well. And those people genuinely thought you did well, but you weren't quite what they were looking for. So therefore, a lot of the time it's quite frustrating because of the fact that you can do your side of it, but it's not exactly what they're looking for. So it doesn't fit, if you like, and that can be really frustrating. I suppose that's the worst part of being an actor.
If you could choose, what actors would you work with? Oh yeah.
The first one would be quite old school, but I think he's a tremendous actor. Ever since I actually saw him in The Godfather. And The Godfather, parts 1, 2 and 3 are three of my favourite films.
Oh, I love The Godfather.
And that was, or is, Al Pacino. And I saw him in Scent of a Woman, and I thought he was going to be the most ridiculous film in the world. And he used to do this thing, he's this blind general type, or blind major. And I find him so convincing after a period of time. So the first scene I saw him, and he's going, hoo-ha, and all that, and I thought, oh, God, no, no, no. But within 5-10 minutes, I sort of was in there. So he would be one of my favourite actors from old school. More modern one would be Michael Fassbender. And he is, I think he's fairly well known now, but he's not like a superstar type actor like some of the ones you've got these days, but I think he's a tremendous actor. And the other one is a little bit different in as much as I can't work with this man anymore because he's actually no longer with us. He actually died a few years back. But someone who I thought was a tremendous actor, really tremendous actor, was Philip Seymour Hoffman.
I've heard of him.
And he was... He didn't look the part at all. He didn't look like an actor. He was a short fella. He had fair hair. But every time I watched him, he was superbly convincing. So they would be the three.
What is your favourite colour socks to wear?
Is two allowed?
Any.
Right. Depending on the circumstances, I always like people who wear purple socks. People who are a bit...
okay.
It implies that they're a little bit different. They're a little bit sort of excited and they think about things in a different way. Do you see what I mean? So that's the sort of thing. I do have a couple of pairs of purple socks and I wear them now and again. And they clash with whatever else I'm wearing, but I don't care. So I'm quite happy to show my purple socks. And for most other purposes, good old black. Because it sort of doesn't clash with anything else and they're just like an everyday sock. How we end up talking about socks? Interesting one, okay.
Interesting.
But either purple or black. Choice of two.
Either.
Yeah.
If you were given a chance, would you enter Big Brother?
No. Do you want me to say that? Why? I don't want this to be like a rant now, a tirade against all these programs, but I just think they're a bit pathetic.
Yeah.
They're a bit ridiculous in as much as there's people being put in there who all of a sudden think they're famous and they've never actually made any effort to become anything other than just being famous. So years ago you were famous for something, if it was to do with films, if it was to do with politics, if it was to do with
TV,
anything like that. You were either an expert surgeon or a chef or whatever. But I think it's quite destructive, really, to be honest, because of the fact that it just allows people to be famous for being famous. And to me, that's a little bit... So the answer is no.
What's the best part of being an actor?
That's quite difficult to answer, really. I think it's to do with a compulsion. It's the sort of thing that if you think about it, any logical person, right, any sensible person would not do that. They would not. They find something else to do, right? Because let's tell you why it's a bad thing first, and I'll tell you what's the best part. It's a bad thing because it's unreliable. It's generally speaking, unless you're really famous, it's very badly paid. It's something which you never ever think you're good enough at. Because the funny thing is, if you're a good actor, you think, well, not so much that, but there's very few that get paid a lot of money because most people don't get paid very much money at all. I'm lucky in as much as I've got my police pension, so money isn't an issue for me particularly, but in general, being an actor is not very reliable. But the good part about it, the thing that overrides all those things, is the fact that it's like a compulsion. It's like something that you feel that you have to do. And I don't know where that comes from. And if you ask other actors as well, they'll tell you the same thing. They feel compelled to do it, even though they know in many respects it's not a sensible thing. But I think the thing that puts them all together is the fact that they have a desire to tell stories, as I said earlier on. They have a desire to show people about the world in a different sort of way. So the answer to your question, the short answer, is it's not about it being a good thing, it's about the fact that you feel compelled to do it. And that's why I do it, because it's something I love doing. even though I'm never ever happy with what I do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah?
What is the strangest thing a role required you to do?
Every now and again you get asked to do something which is reasonably unpleasant. It's the sort of thing that you wouldn't do as a normal human being. You wouldn't, like me or you, wouldn't think of doing those particular things. And that's strange in as much as you've got to sort of switch on to do this particular thing for a period of time while the camera is rolling. And then after that you can switch off, and you can, it's almost like you go like that, you do whatever it is you're supposed to be doing or portraying or showing, and you go like that and you switch off again. And in reality, afterwards you think, oh, that really wasn't very pleasant. And I'm thinking of, I did a film last year, I think it was now, with Lorna, funnily enough. She was the barmaid, or she was the owner of this club. And I played this businessman who was really very unpleasant. He was like a sadistic, nasty man. Very much used to sort of take advantage of other people. And during this particular film, I had to take advantage of these people who were like Polish or Romanian sort of workers, and they were working in the sex industry, and I was the man who came along as the customer, this big businessman, and I paid for them to do whatever I wanted them to do. And just to explain that in short, it was, when I was doing it, it felt quite unpleasant. But afterwards, I was really glad I'd had that experience. I'd actually felt like that, because it's not something I would naturally do myself. So I suppose the answer to your question really is, when it's not strange, it's more to do with when you're asked to do something which is a little bit difficult for you personally. But it's also a nice experience when you've done it.
Have you ever played someone of the opposite gender?
I can only remember once, and that goes back a long, long way. So this shows when my interest in acting came from in the first place. I went on a course, like a residential course in Dyffryn House, which is in this area. And I can't even remember why now, but I was about 14, and the three of us had to dress up in women's dresses, and we were the receptionists for this particular thing, this performance that people were coming to see. So when they came in, we had to greet them as ladies. You know, it's like, you know, since then we've seen Little Britain, oh, we're ladies and all that, you know. We were doing that when I was about 14. And I had to wear this long green dress, like, and a bra, as far as I can remember, and a pair of tights. And that's the only time I can remember playing a lady.
What was it like?
What was it like? I don't remember it being. I've never done it since. I don't do it in my own time, so I can't remember it being anything, to be honest. It was interesting to see people's reaction towards me, and I think it was more shock than anything else. They had these probably 14-year-olds going, "Oh, hello, welcome this evening," and all that. I could do that voice a little bit higher than when I was 14, but it was just an interesting experience, but not something I particularly want to repeat.
What are you working on at the moment?
Only yesterday, actually, I went to a really interesting thing, which is potentially quite exciting. I genuinely can't say too much about it at the moment, because, as you may or may not know, a lot of these things, people don't want to put too much out there in case somebody else sort of steals their idea or whatever. But I can say it's a Wales/India web series which has been planned to start shooting in December, mainly in Cardiff. And I was told yesterday that I'm very likely, or more or less definitely, going to be playing someone called Detective Inspector William Locke. And that's an interesting thing. And also, I have just finished with my film partner, Fritz Oskenik. We just finished this thing, which is a music video, which is called, and again, I can't give too much away. I can only give you I can't tell you what it's about, because it'll be coming out next week, hopefully, I think. It's called The Ballad of Uncle Stan, and I play Stan, the old man. How about that?
What is your favourite role so far?
Well, funnily enough, we were talking earlier on about the fact I prefer film now, but my favourite ever role was actually on the stage. And it was a fella called Mr. Podgers. and he was what they call a chiromantist. Now, chiromantist is somebody who either can or pretends to be able to tell your future from like the marks on your hands. And he's a con man, so he actually fools people into thinking these things are going to happen. And what I liked about it the most was the fact that they'd spent quite a lot of money on the costumes. And I wore this dinner suit, like what they call tails, and a little dicky bow and all that. And when you put stuff on like that, it actually makes you feel the part before you even open your mouth. It actually makes you feel that you're in there doing something a bit different. And the best thing about Mr. Podgers was, first of all, he was quite arrogant, but secondly was the fact that he talked like that. He was actually talked like that, but to make himself sound posh, he used to say all his heights all the time like that. And as soon as I'd worked out how he talked, I understood the character. And a lot of actors will tell you is once you've got the voice and you've got the walk, you've got the character. And Mr. Podgers used to talk like that, and he used to say all his heights all the time, so he could pretend that he was actually quite posh. So Mr. Podgers.
What was it like working with Lorna?
Lorna, well, she is actually is she going to look at this eventually, is she?
I don't know.
Okay, Lorna, I think you're wonderful. Whatever I say now, right? You are wonderful. But actually, seriously, she's one of the most positive people I've actually ever worked with. She's very much up for it. She's very much. I could tend to be a little bit sort of, and I get a little bit down on myself and a bit sort of. I'm not happy with what I do, and if you're in her company, she's always seems to be up, and she's always a really positive person. And by coincidence, when I was talking earlier on about this Wales/India web series thing, when I went to see the people yesterday, they asked me, did I know someone who could perform, act and dance? I thought, aha, I know exactly who that's going to be. So I've actually, whether she goes for it or not, I don't know. But I've actually put her forward as a person who can do exactly those particular things. And also by coincidence, I was talking earlier on about Mr. Patterson, about the scenes in the club where he goes there looking for these two people. She was actually I think she's the manageress of the actual premises then. So I've worked with Laura 3 times now, and every time she's really good fun to work with, and she's good company in as much as when I get a bit sort of, then she goes, and she makes me feel a bit better.
Thank you very much for your time, Nigel, and hopefully we can meet next time.
Thank you. Nice to speak to you.